What's up, Betters? Patrick here with Betted. Today we're talking about this.
When I talk to you, I can't believe, no offense, Lou, I can't believe they haven't killed you. So on one hand, you think, all right, Lou's allowed to tell us this much. But if you're telling me this much, you're kind of telling me everything. That's sort of what's strange, right? You're allowed to tell me, yeah, there's stuff in our freaking atmosphere that is not human, and the Pentagon has acknowledged it. We don't know what it is. Okay, well now, haven't you kind of told me everything? What are we holding back on here?
In my opinion, Lue never quit working. And when people wonder why he's holding up fake UFOs in front of sitting members of Congress, it's because he was told to. He's a trained disinformation agent, and he's very patriotic, and he's very committed to his oath, and he's going to do what he's told.
All right, Betters, please hit that like button. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. All right, Betters, so what's today's video about? Well, it's about Lue Elizondo and a recent interview he did, along with some other things that I discovered when I joined in X Space this evening, or should I say this morning. I stayed up really late to join the X Space, and I'm adding some of it to this video because it's just very relevant. So we're going to break down some Lue Elizondo comments and some rumors that are floating around about him that are going to be very, very surprising. All right, Betters, let me tell you guys about the sponsor for today's video, UPDF. This is a next level AI-powered PDF editor. It'll edit PDF text, images, links, and add or remove watermarks. And you can also add passwords for next level protection. My favorite part are the AI powered features. So look, I downloaded this PDF from the NSA about aliens to kind of show you as an example. Okay, because in my job of studying UFOs, this will help take my research to another level. It's quick and easy to upload the PDF. It'll then quickly summarize it for you. You can ask it questions and get very prompt responses, which is very helpful. And I absolutely love the AI mind map feature. That is a game changer. So we might finally get the truth about aliens from UPDF. Nice. So use my link in the description to download and install UPDF today. It works on Mac and Windows for desktop, and they even have a mobile app for iOS and Android. So there's no more excuses. All right, so let's just jump into this. This first question that the interviewer asked Lue Elizondo is a question I've always wondered myself, and I was actually very surprised that she asked it, but it's a phenomenal question.
Why the government is not just coming out and like, okay, guys, here's what we have. This kind of makes sense if you're trying to maintain something like Galileo, like you just referenced, that will be done away with arguably by presenting all of this evidence. You can see why somebody might want to suppress it. But you know, when I talk to you, I can't believe, no offense, Lou, I can't believe they haven't killed you. So on one hand, you think, all right, Lou's allowed to tell us this much. But if you're telling me this much, you're kind of telling me everything. That's sort of what's strange, right? You're allowed to tell me, yeah, there's stuff in our freaking atmosphere that is not human, and the Pentagon has acknowledged it. We don't know what it is. Okay, well now, haven't you kind of told me everything? What are we holding back on here?
Again, great question, right? Like, you've already told us everything. What else is there to tell, right? Is this stuff not classified, you're saying, right? And Lue Elizondo's answer, he starts to talk about Schrodinger's cat and this and that. It's just like, okay, just get to the point here.
It's interesting when you talk about the multiple realities, right? There was this discussion a while back using the analogy of Schrodinger's cat.
And he does kind of get to the reason, which sort of doesn't answer the question at all, because he kind of just goes all over the place. But this is the part of the answer that I found interesting.
As far as what the government wants me to say and doesn't want me to say, I will tell you, I've gotten into a lot of trouble. I've had a lot of things. I've had a lot of death threats.
Yeah.
I've had at one time, I was warned several times that the elements within the government, not the government, whole government, because, governments like religions are made of people, and some are good and some are not so good. So I don't hold the government necessarily accountable, but there were elements in the government that were extremely upset with me and some of my colleagues, and did try to come after us. At first, they started with what we call administrative terrorism, trying to get my security clearance in trouble, or trying to accuse me of XYZ, which they couldn't do. It wasn't true, and they knew it. And then they started kind of going a little bit more in the intimidation. One of my colleagues had some drones flown over his house, and then forced entry into his house. Obviously, a very clear message that they wanted him to shut up. My approach has been very careful. I do not discuss anything that's classified, and I do not discuss anything that could compromise ongoing capabilities of our nation. And therein lies the third rail issue that you're talking about. If I were to just come out and say everything I knew, yeah, I'd be in a lot of trouble, and I'd probably, wind up being sued somewhere.
Okay.
And of course, that's always a possibility. Is why I have 5 German Shepherds and I'm heavily armed. Unfortunately, it's just a reality of life that I have to deal with. But with that said, I've made it very clear to the government that I'm not their enemy. I'm a patriot. I still will consult with the U.S. government when asked. I love my country, and what I want to do is actually be part of the solution, not the problem.
So basically sort of insinuating that he hasn't told us everything because he's been threatened, his life, he's got German Shepherds, he's well armed, this, that, and the other. And that's going to protect him from the force of the U.S. government, I guess. 5 German Shepherds and a couple hand pistols. Okay. But again, very still poignant question that the interviewer asked. And in my opinion, he did not answer it. And, I found his answer very interesting because he does lay it down thick that he's been threatened, and his life and his friend had drones go over basically telling him to shut up and all of this stuff, right? He's always talking about this, how he's putting everything on the line and it's so difficult for him. And, and it makes you wonder, why do you keep talking about that, right? Like, what is the point of that? Well, it made me think of something because recently on an interview, Jesse Michaels' show, okay, he was interviewing UAP Gerb, and they said something during the interview that has always stuck with me. And I think it's relevant right about now.
I think this is going to sound maybe a little nuts, but I think there's a there. I think there are people in the pro UFO community on Twitter and stuff that almost play up the dangers. There are dangers. I've been fucked with. You've probably been fucked with. I've had weird shit happen to me. But there are people where it's all they talk about is how dangerous it is to look into this stuff. And I'm like, are you trying to deter more people coming out? That seems like their whole beat. They're trying to circulate that as much as possible. It's like they want that to be a meme that's embedded in your head if you're ever thinking about going public, because there have been deaths here and deaths there. And there have been some spooky shit has happened. But I don't know. It's if that's all you're talking about over and over and over again, I sometimes question. I'm like, are you some sort of operative or something?
Yeah,
what's your deal?
fear-mongering to drive clicks. Same thing. I've had weird.
And are you trying to deter the next person from coming out because you're talking about how spooky this whole space is?
I don't know. It drives engagement. People saying oh, this horrible thing could happen, or this scary thing happens. I personally, I know you don't, and I'm not going to dwell in
no,
that
you
as well.
Can't. You can't.
It's useless. You're not going to get any work done.
No, you're not.
Just talking about the dangers.
You're just going to be paranoid or whatever.
Because if you got on a podcast, or if I got on a podcast and just talked about I'm investigating UFOs and it's so dangerous, look at me go, I've been threatened.
Yeah.
Nobody really wants to hear that.
It's solipsistic drama.
Who cares?
Nobody gives a shit. Yeah, it's do you want to get closer to the truth?
Yeah.
Go for it, do it, or not, choose another route or something. But no, there's a lot of it's all about me, and it's no, it's not.
Yeah. I mean, Jesse Michaels makes a great point. If you're saying this stuff, are you trying to prevent other people from coming out? right? Wouldn't this prevent other whistleblowers from wanting to come out if this is all you're talking about? How bad it's going for you and how you're threatened and how you're this. And again, stay with me in this video because there's some things that are going to come out about Lue Elizondo, allegedly, that may give us a better reason of why he does what he does. But stay with me because that's coming later. So let me know what you think in the comments. Is Jesse making a good point here, right? Like if you're talking about this stuff, it's like, why, right? Are you just, again, trying to prevent other people from coming out? Because if you're a whistleblower and you're hearing that, you're thinking, well, I'm not coming out. This sounds horrible, right? And Lue Elizondo is always pushing that narrative. Again, listen to the question he was asked, right? Haven't you told us everything? And then he just goes on this tirade. And he didn't stop there. He also said some other things that we'll get to in a second, but something that I want to share with you. Filmmaker Ron James, pictured here, who's actually featured in my upcoming documentary Psionics. I went and filmed with him in Arizona, in Sedona. He has a new film coming out, okay, called Accidental Truth Next, because he actually released a film not too long ago called Accidental Truth, which I'll put a link to down below so you can go check it out. It's a phenomenal film. And he has a sequel coming out. And he shared a exclusive clip, okay, that I'm going to play in full at the very end of this video. But right now, I'm just going to play you a short portion of it to kind of give you another idea of contradictions that Lue Elizondo makes, right? And then we'll talk about it on the back end.
We have new witnesses going on the record with the boldest official statements we have heard so far. Lue Elizondo, journalist Michael Schellenberger, Admiral Tim Gallaudet, and NASA's Mike Gold all delivered striking testimony. Yet once again, no definitive proof was offered to support their claims. Oddly, some of these witnesses have publicly urged whistleblowers to come forward, while seemingly unwilling to take that step themselves.
Congress should create a protected environment so whistleblowers desperate to do the right thing can come forward without fear. As it currently stands, these whistleblowers suffer because of stigma, a code of silence, and concerns about retaliation. These whistleblowers should be encouraged to come forward in ways that protect them against any forms of retaliation.
I'm not a whistleblower, and as far as a leaker, I'll be damned if someone's going to call me a leaker, because a leaker is somebody who takes classified information and provides it in an unauthorized manner for the purpose of disclosure. I've never done that, and I never will do that.
So there he is saying like, hey, people should come out. They should say things, this and that. One, you know, you talk about how bad it is to come out, right? And then second, you're basically saying you're never going to come out with stuff. This is not what you do. You're not a whistleblower. So what? Right? This doesn't make any sense. Now let's move on to another part that of his same answer to this question. Okay. Haven't you told us everything? Right? He still keeps rambling on. And this next part is quite interesting as well. Take a look at the next part of his answer.
If hypothetically the U.S. government had succeeded in possibly reverse engineering and exploiting some of these crashes to maybe at some degree replicate some of the observations we're seeing in performance, you wouldn't really want to advertise that. You wouldn't want your adversaries like Russia or China or North Korea or Iran to know that you've succeeded in doing that, right? Because that is, you know, it would be considered a crown jewel. And so, and I can understand that. And certainly I wouldn't want that to happen. So having a conversation like this, I think is okay. If I were to come out and start going into potentially opining about specifics and maybe what we have and what we don't have, that's a problem. That's a problem, because then what we're doing is we're broadcasting both our strengths, our capabilities, and our vulnerabilities. And that's a no-no. That's no bueno in the world of national security. And so that is why you'll always see me tread very carefully. I was told very specifically I can never talk about crash retrievals. I still am obligated to go through the Pentagon whenever I write a book or something to that effect. They have to review every word of it, and they have the authority to redact things, and they did. In that first book you read,
Yeah.
Imminent, you'll notice that there's redactions. And what I wanted to do is be completely transparent with the American public, so I left the redactions in, and you can see line by line where the government blacked it out and they don't want you to see it, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. This is a marathon; it's not a sprint. You know, we want disclosure, but we also are trying to avoid the idea of what we call catastrophic disclosure.
Interesting. Now, there's one part in this clip that I want to focus on, which is where he says, I've been told specifically not to talk about crash retrievals.
That is why you'll always see me tread very carefully. I was told very specifically I can never talk about crash retrievals.
Well, in this same interview, he talks about crash retrievals, and he's done it plenty of other times before. So what is he talking about?
Crash retrievals, should they exist, are arguably now in the hands of private industry. Like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, the military defense guys, military industrial complex. Why do they have it and our government doesn't have it?
Yeah, that's again a problem. There was actually an effort some time ago. I actually submitted it as a matter of record to Congress, where Lockheed Martin had told some of my colleagues directly. This was the head of Jim Ryder and those big guys that said, "Look, we don't want this material anymore. We've reached the point where we don't know anymore what we can do with it, and we don't want to be responsible for it." What happened back in the 50s and late 40s and so on, and there was material provided to some of these defense contractors to look at. And by the way, therein lies a big issue we can talk about in a minute. And they had it. And, let's not forget that Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex, right? Because they're motivated by money and profit. They have shareholders, right? They are a business. Make no mistake, right? They are, and their business is warfare. Yeah. So the military-industrial complex, because they had the expertise, were given access to material and to report back. But what happens in the government, like any other bureaucracy, people leave, people change jobs, people retire, and anybody who is part of that government that effort is long gone. Meanwhile, these companies still have the material, and so Lockheed actually wanted to give up this material back to the United States government to hold on to. They said, "Look, at this point, it's kind of a liability. It's expensive to keep the lights on. We've gone as far as we can with the research and analysis." So therein lies, part of the problem. We've incentivized warfare as a profiteering thing, and whenever you have money involved, just like the healthcare system, you're going to have greed and you're going to have corruption. And so this is something that we really have to root out. This is why to me, it's egregious that, we don't take this more seriously.
So of course he goes, in depth about crash retrievals, even though he was told specifically, don't talk about crash retrievals. And then he's allowed to say he can't talk about crash retrievals, sort of implying that they're real, right? Because I was told not to talk about them because they're real. Don't forget, there are crash retrievals of foreign technology. Those things exist, but they're not alien. We recover things from other countries, right? So again, a lot of ambiguity, a lot of breadcrumbs, a lot of this, a lot of hypotheticals. If this, if that. I mean, come on, it's who's buying this stuff still, right? It's very interesting and very frustrating, and red flag after red flag. It's like you can't really trust anything Lue Elizondo says, in my opinion. All right, so this next part we're going to get into is an X space that I spoke about earlier that I joined. And an X space is basically just kind of this open mic discussion with featured speakers who go on to talk about all kinds of different things, right? Well, Ron James had joined this X space with someone named Red Panda Koala. That's how they're known online. And he basically went on to talk about his new film, right? And play some exclusive clips as well from the film. But, they talk about all kinds of things in these X spaces. And that's exactly what happened in this X space. And so I'm just going to be playing a few different clips from this X Space that I found to be quite interesting. Now I'm going to put a link down below to this X Space. I highly recommend listening to the whole thing, actually, because there's a lot more in it that I don't cover that I'm just like, whoa, what? Now, some of it are rumors, some of it are firsthand experiences. So you kind of take some of it with a grain of salt, but it's still very interesting. And even the rumors, you kind of think, well, this kind of lines up with what's happening, right? So let's just get this started. This is some stuff. Again, this X Space featured Ron James, the filmmaker. And let's just start. So this first clip is about Ron explaining this, presentation, I guess, hearing, quote, unofficial hearing that happened in May of 2025. Okay, this past year in May, with this something called the UAP Disclosure Fund or something along those lines, where Lue was sort of the MC of this event. And that's where he showed the irrigation circle photo, right? Where he was like, I just got this morning. A pilot gave it to me. Haven't vetted it. Here you go. Here's a UFO. Well, apparently that may not be the entire truth about that.
Like let's look at what happened at that hearing. Well, it wasn't really a hearing, the presentation where he held up that image. There are rumors that, and I can't, that's all I can say, that I've been told by several people that there were other times when he had shown that picture. And so for it to just suddenly turn out to be fake, and it was the second time he held up a fake image. And
Yes.
What's interesting is that that particular event, Eric Davis was dropping some bombshells, and to have all of those revelations coming from Eric Davis usurped by this fake UFO picture kind of blew the air out of the entire presentation and caused the credibility of the entire presentation.
So again, it's sort of being implied here that, Lue showed a fake image on purpose or something to that effect. And, to sort of just ruin this whole event because other things were going to be said. And this was a way to make people dismiss the entire event. Kind of like the Hellfire missile that got shown at the September UFO hearing, right? Sort of took over the whole conversation. This is sort of a pattern here, right? You have these events and then something that's completely dismissible takes over the whole conversation. And Lue showing that those irrigation circles, right? Literally irrigation circles, right? And he shows these fake photos, right? Now, Ron is going to state here that it's, he can't confirm it, but he was told by multiple sources that he trusts that, Lue had known about this picture before. He lied. He didn't just get it that morning.
Yeah. And again, I can only say that was told to me. I don't have verification of that. I don't want to be out there passing that off as true information. But I did hear it from a couple different places. And, there's a lot of incidents with the whole bunch of the people that came out at the beginning of the whole TTSA thing. And, when they broke everything in 2017, a lot of these guys have some explaining to do, so to speak.
What's interesting is that he's talking about TTSA, To the Stars Academy, right? With Tom DeLonge, which Lue was a part of. And famously at their very first presentation, Chris Mellon showed some photos of UFOs, and one of them was literally a balloon, a birthday balloon, right? And that's kind of what everyone talked about. Do you see a pattern here, right? Do you see a pattern, right? And it makes you wonder.
In my opinion, Lue never quit working. And when people wonder why he's holding up fake UFOs in front of sitting members of Congress, it's because he was told to. He's a trained disinformation agent. And he's very patriotic and he's very committed to his oath, and he's going to do what he's told.
Yikes, right? He's a trained disinformation agent and he's going to do what he's told. And look, I commend Ron James for coming out and saying this stuff. He's got a very good reputation in the community. He's put out some good films, and he's owned up when he's been presented stuff that's turns out to be bunk, right? So, because he famously on my show showed some pictures that he thought were UFOs, and the internet figured out within an hour that it was not, right? And he accepted it. He came out and said, and that's, just very interesting. Because it does make you wonder, did Lue ever stop working, right, for the government, right? And look, I actually, being in the space, I asked this question.
Is the implication here that Lue Elizondo is somehow potentially working for this UFO legacy group currently? He pretended to resign, and his goal is to sort of put a stick in the spokes of this movement to
I
keep
don't
it
think his
from
goal
really
is to
gaining
put,
any steam.
yeah, I don't think he's got a specific mission to put a stick in the spokes. I think he's got a significant mission to do whatever he's told to do, and he's told to do it. If that involves, hey, this week we need a stick in the spokes, next week we need a little bit of information that's true, and then he'll do it. And so, is he formally still working for him? Who knows? But it's like the mafia. You never not working for him. And so if he gets the phone call, says, "Hey, we got a picture we want you to show at this thing," then he's going to show the picture. And did he know it was fake? I don't know. He sure acted surprised, but
But is the implication that he's working for the UFO legacy program or just for the US government in general? Like, I don't know. I guess
I
that's
don't
what I'm
think
trying to
any of
get at.
these guys know exactly who they're working for because it's not like, oh, let me go over to Area 51 and get my orders for next week. It doesn't work that way. There's these weird little chains of command. There's these weird compartmentalized things, and the orders come from way deep, and they're filtered up through trusted pipelines, and nobody knows anything except do what you're told when you're told to do it. And Lou can't walk into the person that told him to hold up that picture and demand explanations about the entire UFO history because they're not going to tell him.
So it's very interesting. It's like, did he know it was fake? Was he just given it and said, put it out, but he's also tried to protect his name at the same time, or he did know it was fake. But either way, the end result was what he wanted, which was to diminish that whole unofficial hearing, right? Because he ended up leaving the Disclosure Fund organization right after this, right? And everyone was kind of pissed, like, what the heck? I mean, again, he's been touted as a UFO expert, and then he shows a picture that he just got and presents it. Of all the pictures, of all the things he could have shown or talked about, that's what he puts out, right? Doesn't make any sense, right? It's like, is he really that ignorant? Or was he being told to do it? Now, this next part is quite interesting. We're still talking about Lue, but this next part is very interesting because it leads into the next sort of clip now, but it's about Dr. Gary Nolan. And something that Dr. Gary Nolan told Ron James, which is bonkers.
Another thing that Gary told me, and he wouldn't mind it if I say this, he was promised numerous times that he was going to get access to a craft, and every time it fell through. But he was told that, and he was told that they exist. He knows they exist.
So Dr. Gary Nolan was told he was going to get to see a UFO, and every time it just fell through. I mean, what? Right? How many other people have they done this to? Right? This seems to be a pattern, because I remember Eric Weinstein and Sam Harris both talking on Joe Rogan about they were also approached by UFO people and told things were going to happen that didn't happen. This seems to be, again, a pattern, right? Same thing with those guys, right? This seems to keep happening, right? So Dr. Gary Nolan's told he's going to get to see a UFO. I mean, how excited would you be, right? Like, oh, this must be real. This is great. They're going to show me a UFO. This is happening. It's happening, right? And then it doesn't happen. Wouldn't that be a red flag? That'd be a red flag for me. I still wouldn't believe it at that point, right? And that's kind of what happened to Eric Weinstein and Sam Harris as well. Like, this is probably bunk, right? But it leads to the very next clip, which is Lue Elizondo seeing a craft and him coming out and saying that, and apparently trying to cover it up, that he came out publicly and said, I saw a craft, and then again tried to cover it up.
I mean, I've heard from reliable sources that Lue Elizondo had seen a craft up close in a facility.
Yeah, so that's another thing that I know a little bit about. Patrick Unvetted was talking about this the other day, and he was talking about the materials and the craft thing like they were they were the same story, but they're actually not. The place where Lou supposedly saw a craft was not the same. It's not related to the story about how the materials never made it to Bigelow. It's a different thing. And what I was told from this is that uh, he kind of let it slip actually a while ago before I put out the first Accidental Truth back in probably late 2022. He let it slip that he'd seen a craft, but then, yeah, he got himself in a lot of trouble and he had to walk it back. So then he got very lawyerly about it and was like, well, I'd gone to a place where a craft was supposed to be a facility.
We love a good UFO walk back.
Yeah. So that's, he walked that back. But that was a few years ago. And some people think that when he says he saw a facility that was built to harbor a UFO, he was talking about what they did at Bigelow Aerospace to prepare for receiving the craft and the materials. But I've also heard, and again, this is not conjecture, but nothing substantial. But I've also heard that it was in another base where he was taken. And so the story about Lou seeing a craft seems to be corroborated by Lou telling other people and actually going public with it before he didn't. But it's not the same as this material story.
So again, there's another story that I made a video about. I'll put a link in the description of, basically Luis Elizondo in written testimony, right? Saying that Pax River, okay, in Maryland, in the Chesapeake Bay, basically that they had built a warehouse there or a facility, right, that was classified to be able to move a craft, right, to Bigelow Aerospace, right, all part of OSAP. But Ron here is stating that what Lou talked about seeing a craft is totally different. Another facility where Lou saw a craft, right? Again, it gets very convoluted and very messy, and it's really hard to keep all these pieces together. It makes you wonder, why can't people just come out and say the truth, say what's going on, right? Again, makes it very hard to trust Lou, right? And, comes out, says he sees a craft. Oh, let me backpedal here. I got to change my story, do this, do that, right? Like, again, he literally is the embodiment of Schrodinger's cat, right? Because that's the answer he gave after he was asked, haven't you told us everything? Right. And again, he goes on this diatribe about Schrodinger's cat. It's like, that is Lou. Lou is both telling you the truth and a lie.
It's interesting when you talk about the multiple realities, right? There was this discussion a while back using the analogy of Schrodinger's cat.
It's like, you don't know which. They both exist at the same time, right? So ironic, to be honest with you. And again, just so confusing, right? And it doesn't stop there, because this other person in the space had a fascinating story about Lue Elizondo involving David Grush and some of the behind the scenes mess, right? This woman named Allie Clark, who apparently was approached by Luis Elizondo to talk to Eric Burleson about David Grush.
Did I tell you guys about when Lou came to me and wanted me to go to Burleson to get Grush to play ball? Did we ever talk about that?
Oh no, tell us about that, please. That sounds right up this alley.
Okay, so I think it was before. Yes, it was before the last. When he disclosed the fake picture. I don't remember if it was that evening when we had dinner or it was a phone call around that time, but he said, you obviously have a good rapport with Burleson, and I didn't understand what the issue was, but he said, you need to tell him to have a talk with Grush, that Grush needs to put his personal grievances aside right now and be a team player. He gave me some other analogy or metaphor to use, but he basically wanted me to go to Burleson and get Burleson to get.
When was this?
It was right around the time of when he gave that fake picture. It might have even been at that dinner. If not, it was in a phone call prior to that.
So this is like last year around April, May timeframe.
Yeah, right around. Yeah,
Did you
that
have
was.
any idea of what Lou meant by put aside his personal stuff and be a team player?
He said that that Grush was obviously angry at like what had happened to him, and rightfully so. But that right now it was about the. He said we're trying to. He gave some war analogy, and basically that Burleson needed to talk to him and tell him to. It's not about him right now, but it's about the team and the mission or something like that.
So that sounds very like, the mafia. Hey, talk to David Grush, tell him he's got to play ball. Why doesn't Lou just call up David Grush or email him or say it himself? But he's got to go to this woman to then tell Eric Burleson, who then would tell David Grush, right? That's like, this is Luis Elizondo's MO right here, in my opinion, right? And I have every reason to believe Allie Clark telling this story, right? Because she's not saying the impact or this. You're just like, this is what happened. Lou asked me to do this. And, it's just very weird. Right. And I wonder what Eric Burleson's response. I wonder if he told David Grush. That probably made David Grush pissed. Like, hey, dude, what? Again, which explains the whole reason why David Grush isn't in age of disclosure. Part of the reason, right? Because Luis Elizondo executive produced that, right? And he's not in it. And Jeremy Corbell, again, I already made videos on this, so I don't want to keep showing clips, but Jeremy Corbell had said on Weaponized that David Grush wasn't in age of disclosure because he's on a different path, right? And he basically feels like Luis Elizondo isn't being honest, and he should be honest to come out and say what he knows, right? Again, something's not adding up, right? Is Luis Elizondo really in the UFO legacy program, but he's playing a disinformation agent to sort of hide it? Or is he out here playing a disinformation agent to basically make you think UFOs aren't real? Because everything he does makes me think it's not real, right? But not everyone thinks that. The majority think, oh, he's making it seem like it is real. But that wouldn't be a good job of a disinformation agent, right? It would be to make you think it's real, but underneath it's not real. He doesn't make you think it's not real, right? It's, again, I just don't trust that guy. I mean, no offense. I just don't trust him, right? At all. Can't really trust any information he comes out with, right? And a lot of people are feeling that way. And again, Ron states he still thinks he's working. Now, like I promised earlier in the video, I have an exclusive clip from Ron James's new documentary. It's narrated by Matthew Modine. Okay, the documentary is called Accidental Truth. It's coming out later this year, sometime at the end of spring is what I was told by Ron, and very near when our documentary comes out. And this is a very interesting clip. It features a lot of different players in the field.
Hey, it's Ron James. I'm actually here in Tim Burchett's congressional office building, his office, and we just did a fantastic interview. Tim, the work you're doing is off the charts.
Thank you, brother.
Disclosure, and I just want to thank you
for everything. Brother. You're very kind.
Hope to see you again soon.
Hope so. Hope I have some earth-shattering information very soon.
I'm sure I'm going to be the first one he calls.
Absolutely.
Fast forward to November 2024. New hearings are announced to be held by the House of Representatives.
It's the morning of November 13th on our way to the Rayburn office building.
Quarter to 6 in the morning. People are already lined up. Looks like everybody that's here is probably going to have a pretty good chance of getting in.
Join me, Steve Bassett, Danny Sheehan, Bob Salas, David McDonald from MUFON at a press conference right after this event.
Actually, it's a briefing event.
A briefing event.
Can't
Yeah,
call
that's
it a
right.
press
Yeah,
conference.
because we had to word our permit a certain way.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. Not a press conference, a briefing event. Yeah.
Well,
okay.
it is what it is.
Okay.
I'm here with Danny Sheehan now. We're going to be putting on this press conference a little bit later. Well, we can't call it a press conference. It's something else.
A briefing.
We're announcing a little bit of joint venture stuff between MUFON and New Paradigm Institute, and it's really great to be here. What are your expectations of today's hearing?
Well, there are going to be like two phases of it. There are going to be the statements that the witnesses have already prepared, and they've already been cleared with the proper security folks. And then there's going to be questions from the panels. And so then the question is whether our people are going to be able to answer those questions.
This is the hearing that is going to change the whole course of disclosure.
We have new witnesses going on the record with the boldest official statements we have heard so far. Lue Elizondo, journalist Michael Schellenberger, Admiral Tim Gallaudet, and NASA's Mike Gold all delivered striking testimony. Yet once again, no definitive proof was offered to support their claims. Oddly, some of these witnesses have publicly urged whistleblowers to come forward, while seemingly unwilling to take that step themselves.
Congress should create a protected environment so whistleblowers desperate to do the right thing can come forward without fear. As it currently stands, these whistleblowers suffer because of stigma, a code of silence, and concerns about retaliation. These whistleblowers should be encouraged to come forward in ways that protect them against any forms of retaliation.
I'm not a whistleblower, and as far as a leaker, I'll be damned if someone's going to call me a leaker, because a leaker is somebody who takes classified information and provides it in an unauthorized manner for the purpose of disclosure. I've never done that, and I never will do that.
In a compelling example of how UFO investigators uniquely contribute to uncovering the truth, Ron James and his team were more involved in the hearing than anyone realized.
I actually had the opportunity to submit a question, so we'll see if they ask it. It's going to be really cool if they do.
During Congressman Eric Burleson's questioning of Lue Elizondo, a small group in the back of the room was actively texting the congressman questions to ask in real time.
If we were in a secure setting, if we were in a SCIF, would you be able to provide or get access to something, whether it's visuals or material that we could put our hands on, or biologics, that would convince me?
Sir, that decision would not be mine. That would be to the gatekeeper still in the U.S. government.
Does any branch of the United States government or defense contractors possess technology?
Sir, there's documentation that I believe was submitted for the record that was approved for release by the U.S. Pentagon, by the Department of Defense Office of Pre-Publication Security Review, and it states one of the reasons why my predecessor program, OSAP, was trying to collect material of unknown origin.
Was it successfully collected?
It was not. What happened is that there was an aerospace contract company that requested to divest itself of the material that was collected in the 1950s. Unfortunately, that didn't actually occur.
It was then that Elizondo delivered yet another accidental truth.
So let's dive into that. That's the Bigelow Airspace, correct? So
yes, sir.
There was a journalist, Christopher Sharp, who said that there was a transfer between Lockheed Martin, Bigelow Aerospace, and the CIA allegedly blocked this. Can you describe that?
What I can say is that it was blocked.
Elizondo confirmed that it was, in fact, Lockheed Martin that possessed these exotic materials that we originally referenced in the last film. This was probably the most overlooked, yet important revelation of the hearings.
New York Times reported that you modified your facility here in order to house some material from somewhere else. Did you ever have it?
Never had any.
Did you ever see it?
Do you see
in Accidental Truth, we were talking about the material that was supposed to be sent to Bigelow Aerospace. It never did. And it took me until the congressional hearings to get to the bottom of it, because during those hearings, I was texting questions to Congressman Burleson to ask Lue. And the question about Lockheed Martin and Bigelow Aerospace came up, and Lue Accidental Truth did and confirmed that, yeah, Lockheed had that stuff, and it got held off.
And I was on the team that was supposed to receive that.
Right.
And I actually know where it was held, and it is, this might surprise people, it was held in a place that was laughably insecure. I mean, it was held in a place that I now know that I probably could have skipped over the fence, broken the lock, gotten in, and taken it.
That's pretty incredible.
That should surprise people, because much of this stuff appears to be held in plain sight.
All right, vetters, hope you enjoyed that clip. Again, I'm going to put a link down below to Ron James's first Accidental Truth film, so you can check it out. But let me know what you think down in the comments about Lue Elizondo and all these contradictions and red flags and everything, right? Does this make sense? Is Luis Elizondo still working for the government to just disinform us, right? Either way, something's not adding up. Something's fishy, but nobody's really catching on. Like, people are in the UFO community, but not in the overall media landscape, right? He's still getting asked on the show. Like, nobody thinks that of him. So if he is a disinformation agent to make you think UFOs are real when they're not, he's doing a good job. If you're the public. If you're in the UFO community, a small percentage of us think he's full of shit, right? The majority of people still respect him and like him and think he's very credible, even though he's shown numerous fake UFO photos. And again, done all kinds of weird things behind the scenes, because there's all kinds of people with stories. So are they all true? Are they not? That's up for you to decide. We'll see you guys on the next one. Remember about us. Every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
So, I'm going to tell you a real life story. So, I used to be in Florida, and one night, man, I was out back with a bunch of my friends, and they was all the smoking and drinking, and I opened up one of my buddies, telling him about a struggle I was going through, and he started praying for me. And at this time in my life, it was weird, because I wasn't really, I believed in God, but I still was like, you need to show up, you know what I mean? Because I was really going through it. But anyways, long story short, right there, as they're praying, I begin to look in the sky. And as I'm looking in the sky, I see what I can only believe is a constellation angel. It was a set of stars that were set in the sky. And then they all began to move in synchronization, creating different images. Like, I saw a cross 2 or 3 times, and then the cross would take the shape of like a cherub, like it would just show like wings and a cross. And then a buddy of mine when I said, hey, are y'all seeing this? He looks up in the sky and he goes, oh man, that's a UFO. And when he said UFO, the thing vibrated really fast to where you couldn't even see it. It just looked like light instead of dots. And then it showed a cross one more time and then took off like at a high rate of speed, faster than anything, faster than what you would think a comet could fly. Now, this was years before this whole age of disclosure thing, but the research that I've done and looked into this, man, look, if there are aliens, okay, they're God's creation too. He created this whole kit and caboodle, man. He's the ultimate biohacker. So, if you haven't repented and given your soul to Jesus Christ, man, don't be here looking crazy when the demons show up looking like aliens. Anyways, God bless y'all. Love y'all. Elvis has left the building.